Welcome back to our channel. Nathan stood at the threshold of the towering glass facade of the Dupree estate, the late afternoon sun slicing through clouds, casting long shadows over the manicured lawn. He wore a tailored charcoal suit, every inch of it earned by craft and cunning rather than inherited privilege, unlike those who lounged within those walls. For a moment he paused, fingers brushing the cold metal of the intercom, as if touching the past itself. Kenneth, his father, had died 2 years ago. What the world had whispered was an unfortunate accident, a sudden cardiac arrest on a business trip. But Nathan knew it was neither accident nor natural. Betrayal had carved the path to Kenneth's fall, and Nathan had followed its contours like a baying wolf tracking scent. He remembered the screams, Kenneth's voice, cracking and raw, echoing in a dim hallway as he realized the trap. He had called Nathan, but the call came too late, the treachery too complete. Kenneth's final words on the line, a whisper of trust broken, of someone he once called friend. The phone died, the world shifted, and Nathan was left powerless, hidden behind the shadows of grief and regret. His mother had wept for months. Nathan clenched his fists and vowed that he would not. He would make them pay. Behind those walls, the Dupree family had regained their swagger. Anita Dupree, the matriarch, elegant and unstoppable, accepted condolences and whispered condolences in perfect rhythm with the press. Dani Dupree, the daughter, succeeded her father's global enterprises while maintaining the appearance of the unflappable heiress. Both believed the storm had passed. Both were wrong. Nathan slipped inside the estate under the guise of a rising investment strategist. Someone independent, competent, ready to offer fresh perspectives for the burgeoning Dupree empire. He was welcomed, embraced almost. The proverbial prodigal son returned in a slightly different suit, slightly different name, but the same burning engine within. He met the board, shook the velvet-gloved hands of those who'd raised their glasses to Kenneth's memory and then quietly pocketed his downfall. But inside, Nathan was not calm. When the boardroom doors closed and the lights dimmed, his mind replayed the betrayal. He saw Kenneth's face, trusting, unguarded, when he confided in a partner, a confidant. He saw Anita's polite smile when she heard the plan for Kenneth's project, never once suspecting the snare beneath. He saw Dani's upward glance, ambition dancing in her eyes as Kenneth faltered. And then he saw the moment of truth, the partner's handshake, the alliance with the rival firm, the hidden contract. All of it culminating in Kenneth's exit. Anger bubbled in Nathan's chest, hot and unfocused at first. It was the kind of anger that claws at you in sleep and hollows your voice in the mirror. But Nathan had learned to refine it into something sharper, a surgical instrument. Every meeting, every chart, every nod of approval he offered disguised the reckoning underneath. He played the part of the grateful newcomer making genuine contributions. But inside, he was mapping the fissures of power, the hidden alliances, the names written in invisible ink. The first fracture occurred when Dani cornered him in the corridor after a board meeting. She smiled, cordial, and asked for his thoughts about a risky acquisition. They were considering buying out a startup in East Asia. Nathan answered with praise, faint but firm, then watched her expression change, subtle surprise, a microslip of hesitation. He had offered insight that undermined the rationale for the deal. He knew it would cost her prestige. When Anita congratulated Dani for her keen business instincts, Nathan's satisfaction was silent but complete. The game had begun. Yet the deeper conflict was not between Nathan and the others, it was between Nathan and himself. He had promised vengeance, but vengeance demanded sacrifice. He asked himself at night, at what cost? He had seen his father broken, not just dead. Kenneth had lost dignity, trust, hope. Nathan didn't just want to punish those who betrayed him, he wanted to resurrect his father's honor. Could he do that and still keep his humanity? The answer hovered on knife edge. Anita had cultivated a veneer of impenetrable strength, but Nathan watched how her facade cracked. In a weekend retreat, the family celebrated the 10th anniversary of Kenneth's passing. They drank champagne under golden chandeliers, laughed politely, told stories of how Kenneth had built the company from nothing. Nathan felt bile rise when she mentioned the blessing of her children standing at her side. He raised his glass, forced a smile, then caught her alone in the study afterward. She didn't recognize him as a threat. She thought he was simply the promising young man she had just endorsed to lead expansion. He sighed contentedly, she had already underestimated him. Inside that study, in the hush of late evening, Anita admitted to her assistant, she feared the generation shift was not going well, that Dani lacked the backbone her father had. She feared dissent within the board. Nathan overheard each word. And when Anita later asked him to stay behind, offering him a role as COO with access to confidential files, Nathan accepted, though he felt the weight of betrayal once again. He would infiltrate deeper. The documents revealed the web. Kenneth's partner had been coerced, his health records falsified, his overprescription of medications ignored, the fatal business decision engineered. The partner, long trusted, belonged to Anita's inner circle of associates. And Dani, not just standing by, but actively facilitating the takeover that killed Kenneth's dream. The knowledge went cold inside Nathan. The lines blurred. Was Dani merely ambitious, or complicit in murder? With rage simmering, Nathan confronted himself. If he exposed them, he'd destroy the empire, but also topple his father's legacy, leaving only ruin in his name. One morning, the board gathered in the grand hall for a press conference. Nathan sat beside Dani and Anita. The cameras flashed. Anita praised Nathan, called him the future of the company. Nathan's heart pounded, not with gratitude but with the ticking of a time bomb. He smiled and clapped at the right moment, his eyes locked on Dani's. He saw her glance at him, momentary unrest. Then Anita concluded, and the assembly dispersed. Only later, in a quiet corridor, Nathan pulled Dani aside. He didn't speak. His silence spoke volumes. She attempted a defense, military precise words, careful tone. But Nathan had already seen the ledger with her signature, the getaway assets transferred to rival portfolios, the date matching Kenneth's final trip. Dani's facade flickered. For the first time, he saw fear. She stammered. She lied. He watched as her world tilted. The thing she feared, being discovered, was finally at her door. She offered moral justifications, ambitions, excuses. Nathan nodded slowly. I know, was all he said. That night, both their hands trembled, hers with guilt, his with the anticipation of reckoning. Inside him a storm grew. Sleep deserted him, his nights populated by Kenneth's voice, trust no one. And by his own younger self screaming, make them pay. The internal battle, vengeance versus justice, retaliation versus redemption. He realized vengeance might consume him, turn him into what he despised, cold, calculating, remorseless. If he crossed the line, would Kenneth be proud, or horrified? Then the event occurred, the gala for the company's global awards, held in a grand hotel with floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights shimmering outside. The Dupree family, their board, their elite guests gathered. Nathan entered as honored guest, applauded. But in his mind, the moment had come. He triggered the plan. The CEO addressed the room, invited Nathan to present. On stage, in front of all, Nathan praised the company's legacy of integrity and innovation. The hall erupted. He signaled for the slide behind him to change. The screen flickered and displayed transaction after transaction, date after date, the partners' company, the insiders' movement, the falsified medical files, the money trail to offshore accounts with Dani's signature. Gasps. Anita's face drained of color. Dani's cheeks flamed. The press flickered. Security stirred. Nathan's voice was calm. Gentlemen and ladies, every empire rests on foundation, some strong, some rotten. Tonight you see the rotten stones. He paused. My father built more than a company. He built trust. That trust was murdered here. Anita rose. She looked at him, not with maternal love but with recognition of the wolf she'd nurtured. You're wrong, she said. You know only part of the truth. Nathan nodded. I know enough. The room held its breath. Dani confronted him later, alone in the boardroom. She demanded to know his motive. Nathan answered, you killed my father. Her eyes widened. I merely seized opportunity. He laughed bitterly. She recoiled. "You were his son?" she asked. The revelation struck deeper than any accusation. She had been dancing on Kenneth's grave, unaware he had left behind a legacy of blood. Nathan's return, hidden, masked, patient, was justice incarnate. But then Nathan's resolve cracked. He saw Anita in her private office, tear-streaked, panicked. She tried to bargain. "I raised you." He closed the door behind them. "You did," he said. "And you betrayed him." He laid the evidence on her desk. She touched the paper, trembled. "We believed the only way to protect the company was to move on without him." He whispered, "You killed him with your ambition." Anita's world collapsed. Not only had she lost her husband but had corrupted his memory, traded trust for profit. Her tears were real, her guilt raw, but Nathan didn't soften. Because guilt without action is still betrayal. The company's board erupted into chaos. Shareholders demanded answers. The press howled. Anita resigned, Dani was suspended, the partner fled. But Nathan paused. He didn't root for their downfall to feel triumphant. He felt emptiness. In the shadows of his triumph, his father's voice was missing. The vengeance he had carried felt hollow. He realized the cost. He had sacrificed his peace, his relationships, his trust in others. He had become the avenger, and in doing so, he stepped into the place of the betrayed and of the betrayer. In the weeks that followed, Nathan walked through the estate once more. The corridors echoed differently now. The laughter was gone. The boardrooms emptied. The mansion loomed like a mausoleum. He touched Kenneth's old desk, covered in dust, and felt the weight of what he'd become. He had avenged his father, yes. But he had also inherited the haunted silence of grief and vengeance. Standing by the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city, Nathan whispered into the night, "Was it worth it?" The reflection stared back, a man sharpened by anger, tempered by regret. He had confronted the betrayal, forced the revelation. But the hardest part remained, living with the aftermath. He walked away from that window, into the darkness of the estate, leaving behind the legacy of the family that betrayed his father but also accepting the legacy of his father, flawed but true. And though the storm within him had quieted, it had not ended. For in the quiet, the wounds still throbbed. And Nathan knew, vengeance does not heal. It transforms.